Hello there, welcome to Neverwinter with Ungainly Titan.
Finally, you're up. I was afraid you were going to sleep all day. I guess the instructors work you pretty hard here at the Academy. My name's Pavel. I'm one of the new recruits. I just arrived here at the Academy this morning.
This is Neverwinter Nights. The original version was published by BioWare back in 2002, and it's been digitally remastered by Beamdog and issued out on Steam, and I've decided to purchase it again. I had the original games. I still probably have the CDs of the original games, just don't have the product keys. Not sure if they will run on current systems anyway, but this has been reissued and remastered to run on current hardware. And I've decided to reinstall it, download it from Steam, buy it from Steam, and try it out. And while I'm at it, I shared the playthrough with you guys. I've been played through the Prelude a couple of times because I'm having trouble actually with the recording of it. Normally I use Coral Live screen capture for my video recording of gameplay on the PC. But I've decided this time I'm going to try actually using the screen capture stuff that comes with the video card, which seems to be available now. When I installed and set up this PC first, that screen capture software wasn't available. I think it was an issue.
I saw you talking to
Windows
my brother
10
Pavel.
on a particular version of the video card. But it looks like I have the option now to do screen capture from the video card. So I've been using that instead.
Hello there!
And interestingly enough, it doesn't record the mouse movements, which is actually a bonus, because I think the mouse movements can be a bit of a distraction sometimes in a game like this, especially when I'm looking at the dialogues, because I tend to roll the mouse around the place, and the mouse cursor in Neverwinter is actually quite a big thing, and it would be quite distracting. So the Prelude is there to kind of ease you into the game and to teach you how to use the game. So the conversations with each of the characters are mostly about interface issues. So the first guy teaches you a bit about interacting with other characters. The second guy is teaching you about the cameras. So you have an option of a top-down camera, which I use.
You're one of the
The following camera, which is my preferred camera, and I think they call it driving camera, which is not terribly different. I can't remember now what the difference between the two of them is, but I always preferred the following camera. Which is one of the reasons I kind of fell out of Neverwinter Nights 2. I actually enjoyed the gameplay of Neverwinter Nights 2, and the stories were thought was really good. And the camera wasn't an issue at the start. It was an issue for several updates, and then it became an issue.
It's about time you
went
showed
away
up, recruit.
again. And then they brought in this following camera version that is just really tight. You basically couldn't see over the character's shoulder, and you couldn't zoom back, and I didn't like it, and I just stopped playing The Mask of Betrayal because of it. They had it right, and there was no need to change it back to the way they did, and everyone had complained about it the way it was, and then they went off and changed it that way again for the Mask of the Betrayer, so I just stopped playing the game. And shortly after that, I kind of fell out of love with computer RPGs, because I just found them very limiting, and they tended to make you make decisions that, well, you wouldn't want to make and wouldn't make, and I don't think I'd make, or I don't think the character would make. And they, some of the stuff I just found it really silly. No, maybe just the fact that I was Dragon Age that I was trying, and I just didn't like some of it, didn't like some of the lore. So this is the Rogue Trader.
Hi there, my name's Keta, head of security, espionage, and intrigue here at the Academy. No need to tell me who you are. My sources are way ahead of you.
Of course, one of the best things about Neverwinter Nights in the original format was the Aurora toolset that allowed modding by people who weren't professional game designers. You didn't have to be a 3D modeler, and you didn't have to know about 3D modeling to create a mod for Neverwinter Nights. You could do it yourself. Anybody could do it, really. It wasn't actually that hard to create the landscape, the maps, the terrain, link them all together, waypoints, put in encounters. There was a lot of work in the story mode and the dialogues and stuff like that, keeping the dialogues together and tracking stuff. But there was a lot of people who did, a lot of amateurs, should we say, who created mods for Neverwinter Nights that were better than the actual games in some cases. There was some really good mods out there. Myself and two of my friends, I think, spent a long time, good 10 years probably, playing through various mods online that were for this game. And we really enjoyed them. There's a few of them we probably never got to complete. I'm not sure whether they were even completed at the time. And I remember that at least one of the modders in the modding community, IGN used to have actually a complete list of mods, and used to contain quite a bit of information about the mods for Neverwinter. And I remember, I think at least one or two of those guys actually got jobs in the industry as game designers afterwards.
I see you've got the
And I also know
well
from,
done.
used to
Let
be
me
active on the
first to
Neverwinter forums at the
congratulate
time
you.
as well,
Your
and there were
work here at the
people there who
Academy
actually
is
ran
all but done.
campaigns of Dungeons and Dragons using the Aurora toolset to create the maps. And there were user-made, community-made tools that allowed you to script encounters so that you could basically add encounters on the fly and things like that, and act as a DM. There's a DM client that comes with it. I remember trying it or thinking about it, and certainly I experimented quite extensively with it, but I never persuaded the rest of the lads to join in on the using it as an adventure site. And the other thing, I think my perfectionist streaks was coming against me, and what I was trying to do in the finish wasn't creating a DM map, but I was actually creating a full-blown mod.
Congratulations! Your training here at the Academy. I have been looking forward to meeting you. The instructors here at the Academy speak very highly of your skills. Perhaps after the graduation ceremonies, we can speak in private. Neverwinter can use someone like you. We should arrange to... Wait, what was that? Did you feel it? Brace yourself, we are under attack! We are under attack! Destroy the invaders!
And so the plot begins. This is really the start of the adventure proper. Although this bit you don't see if you skip the Prelude section. You don't actually see this section as part of the Prelude attack. And I also found it interesting that those three guys that are standing in the corner, the allies of Lady Arabeth,
we have suffered.
in most of the attacks that I've ever seen, those guys generally die.
As you
The
may
bad
already
guys
know,
didn't
a
do
number
too well
of
this
creatures
particular
were
time.
brought from Waterdeep here to the Academy.
The combat system
It was
is
believed
actually
the
D&D
reagents for a spell to create a
3rd
cure
edition.
could be extracted. We tried to keep
It
this
is not
information
a
secret,
proper
but
implementation
this
of
attack
D&D 3rd
reveals our
edition as
secret is
originally
well
published,
known,
or
even to our enemies.
finally published. It
Neverwinter
was using, I
has
think,
many
a
enemies. Some
prototype or an
declare
earlier
themselves openly,
iteration
such
of the
as the city
rules of
Luskan.
3rd edition.
Others keep their
So it's
identities
not. It
hidden
wasn't
from
the
us,
same,
striking
even though it
from
came
the
out
shadows.
later.
I do not know who is
The
behind this
rules
attack.
that were
But
used
it
by
is obvious
BioWare
they
or
are
had
here
been
to
issued to
destroy our
BioWare
hope
and
of
included in the
ending the
contract or
wailing
whatever
death. You
licensing
must protect
arrangement
the
they had
Waterdavian
with
creatures. They must not
Wizards
be
of the
allowed
Coast
to
at the
fall
time
into the enemy's hands.
meant
I
they
would take
finished
you
up
to the
using
creatures
quite a
myself
slightly
if I
different
could.
version
But I fear
of
my
the
presence would make
3.0
protecting the creatures more
D&D
difficult,
rules.
if not impossible.
But essentially, once you attack
Our
a creature,
attackers appeared here in this
that's
room.
it. It just
It is
the
likely their
animations
arrival was
and combat
magically
is taking
centered on
place.
me.
There's a roll,
They must have
dice
assumed
rolled
that
every
I
6
would be with the
seconds for an
Waterdavian
attack.
creatures.
And
Even
once you
now,
get
our
into
enemy
multiple
may be
attacks at higher
watching me
levels,
through
they're
magical
rolled at the
means,
appropriate
hoping I will
numbers
lead
of
them right
times.
to where the creatures
So
are
if you have
kept.
4 attacks
I
round,
cannot take that
you get
risk.
4 dice
You
rolled.
must do this alone. Go back
So
through the
Lady
hallway
Arabeth
leading
gives
to
you
this
the
room
plot
and
exposition
take
that
the
you need
corridor
to
the
know,
east.
the
It
background.
leads to the chambers
This
where
is
the
repeated
Waterdavian
in the
beasts
start
are being
of
kept.
the
Take
first
this
chapter,
key.
and
It will open the
your
locked
instructions
door
to go
back
and
in the
save
hallway
the
leading to
Waterdavian
this
creatures
room.
that are needed
I
to
will
create
stay
the
here.
reagent,
Hopefully
cure
my
the
presence
wailing
will
death
draw
in
the enemy
Neverwinter.
away from the creatures they seek. Hurry! Make your way into the hall and then to the chambers down the east corridor.
So the high-level
That is where
paladin
the
stays
Waterdavian
behind
beasts
while the
are
first
kept.
level character
The
is
fate
sent
of
off
Neverwinter
to save the
depends
most
on
important
you.
thing in the
This
city.
key will open the door. May Tyr be with you.
Yeah, that's likely. That is one of these issues that I always have with the design of adventures sometimes, you know.
What's this?
And that
I was
one too!
expecting Arabeth, not some wet behind the ears whelp. Let's see how you deal with my minions.
In fact, infamously, it's one of the biggest issues some people have with the whole Forgotten Realms as a setting. Because officially the Forgotten Realms has high-level characters practically in every second village. There are tons of archmages and characters in their high teens or even 20th level plus in the 3rd edition universe of Forgotten Realms. And what are they doing like when all these world-changing events or world-threatening events are going on? What are they up to? The place must have sort of a world-threatening event going on, multiple of them simultaneously to keep all these people occupied. The remaining section of the Prelude is essentially you go to the water-daving creatures. How fast you go, how slow you go, how much exploring you do around the area is really up to yourself. It makes absolutely no difference to what's going to happen. It's not time critical, it's not time sensitive. In fact, pretty much nothing in the adventure that I remember is ever time sensitive in any meaningful sense of the word. I suppose it's not something they do in computer games. So you can take your time, you can explore all you want. It is not going to make any effective difference to the plot. The one advantage, though, of doing all the exploring you can is that you get extra bits and pieces of loot that means you can buy more potions of Cure Light Wounds, because those you will need when you go out into the city. Scrolls are pretty useful too, because the faster you build up your spellbook, the better off you are, even though it'll be a while before you have enough spell slots that it doesn't matter. You know, at high levels you'll be able to knock out you'll be able to cast magic continuously throughout a fight. But at the lower levels you are extremely limited in the amount of spells you've got and the number of slots. In fact, even though I'm a first level mage or second level mage by the time I finish, it's still probably not worth my while actually casting any spells, because of the limited effect that they have. Whereas once you get a good few spell levels or a good few wizard levels under your belt, then you can start knocking out magic continuously throughout a fight. Because once you clear an area, you can rest, and again, resting has no effect on the plot or the development of the plot. So you rest as much as you like, and you can always teleport back to the temple to rest anyway. It's that kind of a game. But it was a lot of fun, and I remember enjoying it. Now, like I said, the adventure itself was pretty straightforward. In terms of plot, there's nothing complex. Just go here, go there, do this, do that. But the exploration was fun. And there was a side quest. The actual best bit of it, I think, as far as I remember, were the actual quests relating to the individual hench people. There are a number of hench people that you can pick up, that you meet up along the way, and you can hire them. So you take them on, you have one hench person at a time. And you will need them. They are worth... Well, you could solo them. You can probably do the whole lot if you wanted to, without any hench people. Which is one of the reasons I take rogue levels. Because there are a lot of locks. A lot of things that are locked. And a lot of things can't be bashed. So you need to be able to pick the locks. So I always found being able to pick locks and disable traps. But picking locks was more important than disabling traps. Picking locks was the most important thing that you needed to do besides magic, and that was very helpful to be able to pick locks, because there was only one of the hench people was a rogue. But the actual hench people quests I always found personally to be one of the more fun aspects of the game, and you had to kind of get to know them, to develop their trust, and then eventually they confided in you, and you got to find out what their quest was. So this is the final scene, essentially. This could have been a cutscene. Don't think there are any actual cutscenes in the game. Well, there are cutscenes, yes. There are between the chapters, where they do a kind of a chapter summary type thing and give you the setup. But this ends in the same way, not necessarily with Pavel's death. That's just because I didn't heal him up beforehand. But the water-daving creatures escape, and then you get the recrimination afterwards.
No! This cannot be.
But that said, yes, to one of the things I would recommend is exploring the hench people personal quests. To do that, you have to recruit them repeatedly, you have to go a considerable amount of adventuring on them, and you have to sort of inquire. There are opportunities to inquire into their personal lives. So you need to watch out for those dialogue options and to explore them when you get the chance and sort of repeat it. And a lot of the time they'll sort of shut you down, but then eventually they open up and explain what it is to go on. And the backstory of the various hench people is actually one of the more interesting things in the whole adventure. I found it fun anyway, and I would definitely recommend that would be explored. I know several people, and I don't think I've ever done it myself, but it certainly is possible to do the whole thing, even as a wizard, to solo the whole adventure. So the hench people aren't absolutely needed. A lot depends on how you're interested in the game and your tactics and how you're going to approach particular fights and whether you want the thing to be easy or hard. There are different modes that can be played as well, so you can play hardcore as well, where you can injure party members. I've never bothered with that. It's generally too much like hard work. So this is the final element of the Prelude. Lady Arabeth to tell Miranda introduces herself properly and goes over the whole plot again, which in summary, for those people who don't want to bother reading through all the dialogue, is that 4 creatures were assembled in Waterdeep by Kelvin, Arunson, Blackstaff and Archmage of Waterdeep that can be used in a magical ritual that is supposed to cure the Wailing Death. This is the plague that affects the city of Neverwinter. That seems to be unaffected by any divine magic that are available to the city of Neverwinter, or to the normal inhabitants of a Dungeons & Dragons reality. These creatures were assembled and transported to Neverwinter in the deepest secrecy and stored in the Neverwinter Academy, a trading academy for adventurers, of which your character is one, my character is one. Whoever is playing the game is one of these adventurers in the academy. The academy was attacked, the creatures escaped, but they weren't destroyed, and now the task is to find them. The exact details of which, of course, will be the subject of future episodes of this, I hope, assuming I can figure out a way of doing it in a suitable time frame. But I'm sure I'll come up with something. I'll probably edit it down. I'll probably skip a lot of the exploration fights and combats and stuff like that, because that takes up a lot of time. There's an awful lot of trotting around, running into stuff and fighting it. I'll just probably stick to the main plot episodes and to the main adventure locations. The area around in Waterdeep, Neverwinter itself is organised. The map is organised. You have a central area, central Neverwinter around Castle Never, and then you have the 4 districts where the adventures take place, and there's essentially a creature hiding in each district. So it's a question of going in, tracking down the various clues, exploring the place, and locating these creatures, and then bringing them back to the Lady Arabeth so that they can be used, or at least the appropriate components can be used for this ritual that's going to solve the problem of the Wailing Death. And just as I'm looking at this, recording this video, Lady Arabeth's armour was a subject of much comment at the time because it's just so silly. It's essentially a backless steel ball gown, but looking from behind, it looks like the upper plate section is actually some kind of plate armoured brassiere, and the mind wonders, how does this stay up? I mean, it must weigh a ton. How does it stay up? I must have a second look at this in the game. Yeah, it looks like it's plate over mail around her waist. It looks like there's chainmail around her waist. So she's got a plate brassiere that's defying gravity. Quite amazing. Unrealistic body armour and non-functioning clothing are actually my pet peeves about fantasy role-playing games in general. Especially the well, both the unrealistic armor. I don't like unrealistic armor myself. I don't like either the spiky bits, because that's unrealistic. It's extra weight if it's metal. It doesn't add anything to the function. It actually distracts from the functionality of the armor. And I also don't like unrealistic clothing. And by unrealistic clothing, I mean clothing that doesn't actually function to keep you warm or sheltered or dry or whatever. Although I can put up with the unrealistic clothing a bit better if it's not rubbed into my face a little too much. I didn't mind it, for instance, in Xena the Warrior Princess or Hercules the Legendary Journeys, despite the fact that the clothing, both of the men and the women, were completely unrealistic. But enough about that, because this is in danger of becoming a real rant and I could go on for hours on this topic. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like. If you have not already done so, please consider giving the channel a subscription. I will catch you all again soon.